Just one quick little tip when doing stuff like this. Get yourself some baggies, a little permanent marker, and label and write down a little note for all the pieces you take apart. And snap some pictures. I'll be recording everything, so I'll have some video to go back and look at. But that should help you along the way. Today we're removing the factory heat exchanger and installing the Z1 heat exchanger. First step you're going to want to do is remove the front bumper. So if you haven't already seen my video on doing that, it is in the playlist. Once you've removed the bumper, you want to open the intercooler reservoir cap, or remove the reservoir cap. It's the smaller of the two. If you're doing just the heat exchanger job, this is where you would either drain all the coolant if you want, or pinch off these two hoses, and that'll keep most of the coolant in the system, and it will help you later when you top it off. Since I'm also swapping out the intercoolers, I am gonna drain the whole system today and just have that ready for whenever I go to do the intercoolers. And this plug is on the line coming off of one of your intercooler pumps, the lower one. Ooh, that stuff is blue! If you didn't notice, the drain plug is a Phillips. I'm putting this drain plug back in just because there's still a little bit of residual stuff draining out. And so I don't misplace it. You want to be careful not to over tighten it because it's plastic threads. Remove this foam insert from in front of the crash bar. Alright, once you get the foam piece out of the way, you want to remove this line from the crash beam, and then you want to unbolt this sonar or sensor here. And be very gentle with this because they're pretty fragile. So don't bang this thing around or hit it with anything. Alright, so the way I got this first clip off was with two flathead screwdrivers. Kind of push in and lift up. It will come out of there. There you go. Okay, after you remove the coolant line from the top of the crash beam, now's the time to remove your sensor or sonar. I've already loosened these. It's three 10mm nuts. And then using a pair of needle nose pliers, reach in behind, grab this little plastic clip. There's also a plastic clip on the right side to remove. And then you want to unplug this wiring harness. And then we're just going to swing this out of the way. Alright, and then once you get that wiring harness disconnected on this side, you should be able to just pull the crash bar straight out. It's a combination of nuts and bolts on each side, so 8 total. These are all 12mm. You'll need an extension to get in there to them. And they don't feel real tight, so that's nice. So now we've got the hose disconnected, wiring harness and sonar removed and just kind of hanging at the moment, and the crash bar is out of the way. The next step is to swing this oil cooler out of the way. It's got 6 10mm bolts, 3 on the passenger side and 3 on the driver's side. 1, 2, 3, and it's the exact same pattern on the driver's side. Alright, so we've got the oil cooler swung out of the way. I just have it resting on one of my race ramps. Okay, so next step is to remove a 10mm nut from this support beam here. Now you want to remove the 10mm nut from the top of the brace. And this is the bracket that the sonar is connected to. And then for video purposes, I'm going to stop on that for a second. Then you're going to either loosen or remove these 7 bolts. And you can either just leave them loose and slide this sensor bracket forward. I'm probably just going to go ahead and remove the whole thing because it's going to give me more clearance to get the heat exchanger out and just make the job a little bit easier. Okay, if you are going to completely remove this sensor brace, there's 2 more plastic clips holding it in that you got to remove, and then this whole unit can be gently set off to the side somewhere. Alright, so we got our 7 bolts out. Take note when you remove them. I didn't, but this is just kind of a guess here. There's 4 short ones and 3 long ones. I'm going to be putting 2 long ones back in here, 1 long one back in at the front, and then the 4 shorter ones in this center section. And now this center brace should come right out. Alright, so we've got our bracket out of the way because that's how we opted to do this. I would suggest doing it that way just to give yourself extra room. Just be careful when removing it that you don't damage the heat exchanger for the engine, because those fins, it'll kind of slide pretty close to them. There's a cable here. I think this is the hood release cable because it's real stiff. It kind of tries to get caught up on that, so I twisted it towards the passenger side and kind of pulled it out to the right and then came down with it. It'll come out. Just get down at eye level with it and just be careful. Next, you're going to want to remove the wire harness from the AC condenser. 4 10mm bolts securing the factory heat exchanger. I'm going to put some hose clamps on these hoses because there's probably some residual fluid in them. But after I get the hoses off, I'm still going to release those clamps and drain out any fluid. We've got our hardware installed and prepped in the Z1 heat exchanger. There's not much to it. It's just the rubber mounts and the metal insert. Make sure the metal insert's facing towards you, and also the new hose lines. If you're doing it with a Venturi system or vacuum to refill it, you can leave this plug in. You don't need to put the Z1 bleeder valve in because you're not going to be bleeding the system. You're going to be using a vacuum to pull all the new coolant in. But if you're doing it with a scan tool, you're going to want to put the Z1 bleeder valve in here. We got the new heat exchanger in, the hose is hooked up. I still have to reverse the order of everything to button it up. So that's what you're going to do from this point forward, is just reverse the order of how you removed it. And then for the install portion, I'll show the procedure of refilling the system with a Venturi vacuum setup. But for now, I'm just putting everything back together. I want to add in real quick, this AC connector, if you do it exactly how I did, removing that whole support beam for the sonar and everything, you can probably just leave that clipped on. It doesn't get in the way of anything. You can see even if I put it back up there, like, it just gets in the way of nothing.